Hey everyone, today we're going to be installing what I think is probably the most important piece of armor on a Jeep, especially if you go rock crawling. This is going to be the skid plate for the oil pan. Once we get up underneath the Jeep, you'll see how exposed that oil pan, basically the whole area where the coolant line and the transmission are located. But initially we're going to start off with the oil pan. So this is an EVO skid plate, pretty simple design. You'll see here, this is just going to mount up to the factory location of where the oil pan is located. Right there, that's going to be the opening for the oil drain plug. Pretty simple, thick steel. I have to take a look and see what gauge it is. I'll post it up there on the video once I get those details. But let's go ahead and take a look under the engine, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So you can see how exposed the oil pan is underneath your Jeep. Basically there is nothing here protecting it. So to the passenger side of the front axle and drive shaft, it is completely exposed. So we're going to install the skid plate here first, and you'll see here's the transmission plate, coolant line. Right, we're going to armor all those eventually, but for right now we're just going to take care of the oil pan, install the skid plate. So according to the directions, it says to drain out the oil first. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. All right, now we're going to remove the oil drain plug. So we have our oil pan right here. We're going to set it up underneath the engine oil pan and remove the bolt. And let it flow. Alright, now that we have all the oil drained out of the engine oil pan, we're just going to replace the filler plug. Now that we have all the oil drained out of the oil pan, we're going to remove, there's going to be 2 nuts on either side and 12 bolts that we're going to remove in order to fit the skid plate onto. So we're going to do this carefully, looking not to break the seal for the oil pan, so we can just fit the skid plate back on and then put the bolts and the 2 nuts back on. Now that we have the 2 nuts off and the 12 bolts, we're ready to install the skid plate onto the oil pan. So you'll notice here on the skid plate, I actually put some masking tape over the corner areas. These are where the bolts are going to go through, and I don't want to drop them into the skid plate while I'm putting them on. So I covered all 4 corners, which have that recessed area, with masking tape. So you'll see them here. So now we're just going to fit it in. Alright, and then we're just going to take one of the bolts and just kind of, hand tighten it in here. Just so we can get it in place. Now that we have the 2 nuts and the 12 bolts just loosely attached, just kind of finger installed, we're going to tighten them up a little bit. We're not going to tighten them all the way down just yet. We're just going to kind of get them up a little bit further, and I'm just going to use a 10 millimeter ratcheting wrench just to make it a little bit easier to do. Now that we have all the bolts and the two nuts snugged up but not yet tightened down, we need to come in on the back end and torque them all down. So according to the specifications, it reads it's going to need to be torqued down to 85 inch-pounds. One thing that I forgot to mention that I do want to make sure it is important is when you torque the bolts down, to make sure you do them in a crisscross pattern. So we're going to do this one and this one over here, and then this one up top, and then this one over here, and then this one and this one. Right. So as we go along, it's going to move the whole assembly unit up, and you'll be able to tighten them down to their necessary torque rating. Again, crisscross pattern. Go across, 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 and then keep working your way until you reach the 85 inch-pounds torque setting. All right, so the skid plate is on. It is torqued down, at least to the locations where I can access it with the torque ratchet and the socket. So a few of the areas that I mentioned earlier, you're not going to be able to get to. I just marked them off. Hopefully you can see the marking there. So just come back and check after 25-50 miles or so. Make sure the bolts and the nuts have not loosened away from the skid plate in the oil pan. So I kind of made markings basically around the areas, especially around the corners where I wasn't able to get the socket on to torque it down. But there you go. So that is the first piece of armor that we're installing underneath the Jeep. This is the EVO oil pan skid.